Good morning. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner. I'm a board-certified obstetrician gynecologist in Midtown Manhattan, New York City, and I'm bringing to you all things health-related for women. Thank you for joining me today at the corner. I'm speaking about another vitamin today, and that's vitamin B12. Now, when I hear vitamin B12, I know most people who tell me they're taking vitamin B12 is because they're taking it for more energy. They're feeling kind of sluggish and tired. They take the B12 for energy, and that actually has not been confirmed scientifically that it helps. So I'll go over vitamin B12 and what it actually does today. So vitamin B12 is what we call a water-soluble vitamin, which means that it's metabolized through our system and we don't keep large stores of it. So you do have to take it every day to maintain an adequate storage for it. And vitamin B12 helps with DNA production, so the building blocks of our body, helps with nerve conduction, support the neural system, and in making red blood cells for oxygen. So a lot of people think that taking the vitamin B12 will help increase oxygenation and give them more energy, but that actually isn't the case. If you're deficient in B12, then yes, taking the supplement or getting it in your food to get back to where you're supposed to be will help you. But if you're not deficient, scientifically it doesn't do anything to increase what you're already at naturally. Now, the recommended amount of vitamin B12 by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is 2.4 micrograms per day, and kids are supposed to have about half of that amount per day. You will be able to get vitamin B12 quite easily in the diet if you, predominantly if you're able to eat animal protein. So vitamin B12 is largely in beef and animal products, especially the liver. Liver has pretty much everything, especially the liver. Surprisingly, it's in clams. That's something new. I knew it was mostly in liver and dairy, and meat and dairy products. So dairy products, poultry, beef, all types of meats, eggs, milk, of course, and it's also fortified in a lot of cereals, which I was not aware, but a lot of the cereals are fortified with B12. And it's in the clams. So pretty much the only people who really are not getting any B12 at all are people or women who are strict vegetarians or vegans, because they're not getting any of the dairy products, any of the meat products, or even seafood. So they're just getting vegetables, and it's not in vegetables. Now, you can also get it as a supplement, of course. So all of the multivitamins have the amount of B12 we're supposed to get, and you can also get it as shots. Predominantly, if someone's getting a B12 shot, it's usually because they're very deficient. You can get it as a nasal gel, which I wasn't aware it was a gel. So nasal gel, that's news to me. And then you can get it as a sublingual dissolving tablet for people who can't swallow tablets and don't need shots. They can just get the little dissolving tablets. You put them under the tongue. So there's lots of ways to get the B12 in your system. It's quite important for normal nerve conduction, for our red blood cell production, and for DNA production, building blocks of our body. Now, I already mentioned that strict vegetarians or vegans will not get the B12 that they need, but also older adults can potentially be deficient in B12 if they have stomach acid problems, because the way we get our B12 through the food is that it's ingested, and our stomach has to break down. The B12 comes bound in the food with the protein. So our stomach has to break that down with a special enzyme in the acid. So the acid breaks down in our stomach. It breaks down the vitamin that's bound. It breaks it up into B12. And then another factor called intrinsic factor makes it available to be absorbed through the intestines and to get processed. So if you have poor stomach acid, you're not going to be able to break the B12 that you get down through your food, so you can potentially be deficient in B12 because it won't get broken down and it won't get absorbed through the intestines. So that's a big risk factor. Older adults, or anyone, I suppose, anyone who has stomach problems. A lot of people have issues with their stomach acids, or they take a lot of medications. Also, people who take medications to decrease stomach acid, so the omeprazole or the Nexium, those will decrease the stomach acid production, and in so doing, they can also decrease the ability for your body to break down the B12 in your foods and absorb it. There's also people who are born with a deficiency in that intrinsic factor that breaks the B12 down, so they can't break it down naturally, they can't absorb it, and they get what we call pernicious anemia. People who can't break it down get pernicious anemia, and people who just aren't getting it in their diet, they can get megaloblastic anemia, which is an abnormal development of the red blood cells because the B12 is not there to help that development. And then anyone who's had intestinal absorption issues or surgery where they don't have their full length of their intestines to absorb it well, they also will have vitamin B12 deficiency. So it's a lot of people who could potentially have issues with B12 if they're not aware that that's a potential problem. And then I'm going to come back with the next presentation, since this one was kind of long. The next presentation, I'm going to continue the information on B12. So today I presented what it is, what it does, and how we can maintain the B12 in our system, and the ways that you can potentially be deficient or not get the B12 that you think you're getting. And then the next presentation, I'll talk about what the effects of not getting the B12 will be. So I hope that's been helpful information. Thank you for joining me here at GYN Corner. This is Dr. McDaniel. Please hit the subscribe and follow buttons and the like buttons, and check out the podcast. It's also GYN Corner on Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, all the usual haunts. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.